Welcome back to the Manage to Win podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Ryan Englin of Core Matters. Now, they help blue-collar companies hire people, but what do they do that's different? They talk about, hey, what's the core of your company? What really matters? What are your values? What's your purpose statement? And how do you connect that with people you're hiring and then follow through on that so you've really got a powerful team? Ryan's got some great tips for you. Let's dive in. Ryan, I'm really glad to have you on the show. You have a company called Core Matters, and I'm really curious about where you came up with that name and what it means and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I started my entrepreneurial journey in 2011, and I started a marketing company to work with home service contractors. And when I was working with them, we were doing a lot of marketing work. And one of the things that I found out was that people want to buy from people they like, people that they trust. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to get really clear about your company's culture, how you behave, how you think, how you communicate, and then use that in your sales and marketing process. So as a fractional CMO, we actually did a lot of work around a company's values system and the way they think about things. And at the time, I didn't really realize that this was so important in the work we do now. But as I transitioned the business away from helping them find customers to helping them find employees, which has its own story on how we got there, I looked back and I said, you know what? That work we were doing around core values and vision and purpose and behavior and communication, that's the same work we need to do, probably even more so if they want to build strong, effective teams. So Core Matters is really about focusing on the core of your business, the things that are most important. What are those things that matter the most? And there's definitely a tie into core values, but it really is those foundational things that make you unique, make you a great employer, make you a great boss, make you a great company to do business with.
So the challenge I find with companies is that they can put out a great listing of values. Okay, Enron had 4 great values. They were etched in bronze on the headquarters, wall or outside their company.
Yeah.
But they didn't live them out.
Yeah.
So when you're talking Core Matters, I'm jumping ahead because I want to know on the hiring side how you check it.
Yeah.
But how do you make certain a company actually lives them out, or how do you teach them to do that?
So the first thing that we do, and this is a process that we take our clients through. It's not like I sit down with them for a couple hours and be like, ooh, you like integrity and excellence and those kinds of things like Enron, right? Like clearly they did not have that. So instead of giving them words, what I do is I watch how they behave. And we have a conversation about behaviors because I believe that core values are a verb. Every core value should be an action. It should be a behavior. It should be something that I can see and witness. And if I can't witness it, it's not a core value. It might be something you aspire to, but it's not a core value. And when we take our clients through this process, we aren't just giving them words, we're actually validating them with the team. Because I don't want core values to be something that they have to work towards. I want it to be very natural for them. Every company already has things that they value more important than others. We just need to capture those, define them, and then help them become even more intentional by communicating them effectively.
Yeah,
so it's a little backwards.
It's the old thing, actions speak louder than words. So give me a story of someone who was interested in working with you on the values or hiring, and you wanted to go to the values, but they didn't have good values. Maybe they said they had good ones, but they didn't have one, and you caught it in the behaviors. I mean, that'd be a really good story. Do you have one of those? And then I want to hear a good one. But first, I want to hear the bad. That's the sounded great, but ding, 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 all the alarm bells.
I think the thing that most people do is when they're looking for core values, they Google it first. And they're like, ooh, I like that company. They're a good company. They're respected in the marketplace. I'm just going to write down integrity and teamwork and communication and excellence. And I'm going to write that down. That's going to be our core values. And they push it and they harp on it and they're excited about it because it's new. Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called Ideal Team Player. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah. And good book.
Hungry, humble, smart. That is what you need, is hungry, humble, smart. And the thing that I think most people miss in that book is that was the company's core values, were hungry, humble, smart. And it was a way to assess whether or not someone's hungry, humble, smart. But I've met so many companies that have hungry, humble, smart up on that poster and that banner. And they're like, this is our core values. And I'll never forget, there was a roofing company we worked with. And I met the owner of the company. And he goes, oh, yeah, we're all about this hungry, humble, smart. And we had a couple others we added in there too. And I just looked at him and I said, you are the least humble person I've ever met. How is it that you can tell everybody that humble is one of your core values, yet you're not?
Yeah, yeah.
And he didn't like me after that a whole lot, but it was, all I do by ignoring that and letting people continue to go down that path is I let them hurt themselves. Like, stop telling people you're something that you're not. We had a company I worked with real early on while I was doing this. I was still doing the fractional CMO work. And I went to them, and it was 5 guys, all went to high school together, started this company, and it was like a fraternity for these 5 guys. It was weird. Like, I watched them, how they relationship, and I said, you guys are the most passive-aggressive bunch I've ever met. And the CEO stands up and he's like, hell yeah, we are. And I'm like, what? Like, they were proud of it. And where it was hurting them was they knew they were passive-aggressive. Everybody knew they were passive-aggressive. And they couldn't build effective sales teams because the salespeople that they were attracting didn't like that. So we're like, hey, why don't you just own who you are and put it out there? And so we actually wrote a new job ad for the sales department, and I gave it to the procurement manager, and he read it. He goes, this is awesome. He goes, I want to work here. Like, where is this? Like, this is you. I just owned it. Now, I don't want listeners to think that I'm suggesting this is healthy or good by any means, but just own who you are. Be comfortable in your own skin. Actions speak louder than words, like you just said. You're already acting this way. Just put it out there. And they did. Sales skyrocketed. The sales team started, the turnover went away. Like, they weren't having those issues because the people that were there are like, I thrive in this weirdly toxic environment.
I think you make a really good point. And your candor with people, like the first guy you mentioned, you planted a seed, that might sprout a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where he's going to go, oh yeah, that guy Ryan told me this and I wouldn't listen to him. And now look at where I am. And with the passive aggressive folks, I'll say something you also saved them. You saved them time.
Oh yeah.
So when I talk about hiring, I say, what's your most important objective in hiring? And I say, it's to save time. And so you need to find someone who's a match, and you save them a tremendous amount of time, which then translates into a huge amount of money, opportunity, etc. But the thing that I really like, of course, I could not work with passive aggressive, and
I didn't work with them for too long. Let's get that clear.
yeah.
Stop.
But the fact that you enabled them to find people that match, that was actually a huge success.
Yeah.
What about a guy or a gal, a woman who had a company, reasonably successful, actually had good values, but there was something missing. And when you had this conversation about core matters, some light bulb went on either with them or one of their people, and they were able to bring something forth that actually took a strength but made it stronger.
I've actually got 2 stories that came to mind. One is specifically tied to values, and then one is something else that they were missing. I get a lot of people. So we work mostly in the trades, construction, service contractors. That's the blue collar industries. And one of the things that everybody wants is this idea of teamwork, and not just necessarily like 4 guys in a crew all working together, but like we're watching out for each other. We're supporting each other. Like, we're in this together type of teamwork. And we had a company that one of their core values was teamwork. And I don't like that, by the way, because how do you see that? Like, let's get clearer on what you mean. And so when we dug in deep and we sat down with the leadership team and said, what is it that you mean here? What came out of it was, we've got each other's back. Like, that's what's important to us. That's what we mean by teamwork, not team lifts. And, you do this and I do that, but like, hey, we're all in this together type of teamwork. And we were talking to him and I go, well, let's think of a way that's more clear on how do you describe that? And he was a big military guy. And we came up with share the foxhole as a core value.
Yeah.
Like bullets are whizzing by, and this guy over here just got hit and he's hurt, and we still got to defend everybody else, and like we got to take care of him. Like we got to figure it out. Like we are in this together, and there is no running home or calling in sick. Like we have to figure it out. And just that one shift in redefining what he really meant, that one shift was just, I mean, incredibly beneficial for him and his team.
Oh, I think that was great the way you did that. And you made it so personal. It's like, I can't remember his name, but he teaches a lot on customer service experience. John something. And he had always never standards that he would do, which, you know, in my work, I started with, I thought this makes sense. And then I just narrowed it down. We only need the always. But he had one statement that was, be a duck. And the comment was that in customer service, you're going to have people that abuse you. They scream at you, they cuss at you, they're upset with you, and it wasn't your fault. And just like a duck, let the water go off your back. It doesn't matter, but it made it personal. Yeah. Same type of thing. So I really like that. Now you said you had two stories. That was one. What's the?
Yeah, I have another one. And so we worked with we're still working with them, worked with a company, and they actually had pretty good values. They had pretty good positioning statement. Like they had done their homework. And I had to give it to him. And I was like, but something's missing. Like, you guys are like a 7 right now, but you could be an 11. Like, you could really just knock it out of the park. And what was missing? And what we found was that their purpose statement, their reason for existence, why they choose to do what they do. I like to say, your purpose statement is the reason you get out of bed to do what you do on the days when you don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's that purpose that drives you. And for them, for the owner, it was really about this idea of using the business as a ministry tool, something that he could use to plant churches and to impact entire communities of people in third world countries and help people flourish.
Yeah.
We use that word a lot. And when we looked at their purpose statement, it was like, it was okay, but that purpose was just not deep rooted. And so we worked with them, and it took a while because he'd already put so much work in. He felt like he was redoing the work. And I was like, yeah, your purpose is just like, you did really good on the values and the vision, but that purpose is missing. It took us a couple months to rework it, but now it's just like the heavens have parted and said, this is what you're going to do now and why you do it. And it's been really, really beneficial to them. And I think that a lot of companies, what they do is they check the box, got core values. Poof, okay, we're done with that one. And they forget there are other things that are so important to your core matters that if you don't do those too, and you don't become intentional about those as well, like a purpose statement, then you're really missing out.
Now, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I developed in 2002, I had a .com go .bomb. And I realized I had leadership attributes, but no skills. And one of the main things I was not was systematic. So I developed over time what I call 3 strands of leadership. And the first strand is systematic power. Got to be systematic. I'm not going to dive deep. But this is the reason I bring it up, is the second strand. So systematic power is your foundation. The second strand is meaningful work, which is what you're talking about with purpose. And I always tell people, I say, that is the lifeblood. That's your energy source. That's the heart pumping. If you can connect someone to purpose, something that's meaningful to them, then everything flows. And then the third strand is sincere gratitude, kind of wraps it. Everybody wants to feel valued.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, as you talk about this, and I think this is all great stuff, Ryan. Congratulations. Not that I'm the pseudo guru, but I'm curious now. So I'm going to follow up on one of my earlier questions. So you got this company, you helped them develop the purpose statement, the values. What do you teach them as far as how to train those and how to live those out?
Well, I think that values are caught more than they're taught.
Okay.
And so important for the leaders to walk the walk, to talk the talk, not just put posters up and be like, it's for you. Like that same company that had passive aggressive, one of their core values was people first.
Yeah.
And we're like, really? This is interesting to me because I don't see passive aggressive and people first lining up. And they're like, no, everybody on the team. So we put together a focus group, about 25 individuals. Didn't invite anybody from leadership team for a long time. One by one, they're like, people first, absolutely. Absolutely. That is a core value of ours. I see them live it every single day, as long as you're not on their team. If you're a customer or a supplier, you are first. But if you are an employee, you are dead last.
Wow.
And it was, again, they said it, they communicated it, but their actions did not support it. And that's why instead of forcing a core value or a behavior on a leadership team and saying change, we say, you know what, let's really define who you are. And if you don't like who you are, then we can talk about aspiring to be something different and how we need to work on that and build processes and systems into place. But let's make it as natural as possible. And I think where you're going with this is a lot of times companies check the box. I got the values, I got the banners, and then they just go back to business as usual. And they force it.
Yeah, I think it can be, it's one of the things I've learned is that good intentions do not necessarily lead to good results. And one of those is the values area.
Yeah.
And what I've found, and maybe it's just the people I hang out with, but the values have to be, I like to develop them as a team. Everybody's involved. But then once they're established, then there has to be regular check-ins. You know, how you doing? Or, hey, can everybody tell me how you lived out one of our values this week or this month? Or I don't believe in we're going to have an employee of the month award or week where you have one person. I like to do stuff where everybody,
and
then there's some accountability. When you have something go wrong, one of the pieces of the puzzle is not just, you violated this process, is that, can you tell me how what you did goes against what our core values are? So it's that live it out thing I think you're talking about.
And we actually used an opposite approach to it, like the other side. So like, can you show me how this wasn't living out a core value? I want to hear stories where someone did.
Yeah.
And one of the tests that we do before they get to roll out is every leader on the team has to be able to tell at least 2 stories within the last month of that value showing up. Yeah, and if you can't tell a story, that is not a real value. And we've had companies that have struggled so much with this. And I was like, I know you're fighting for this as a core value, but if you can't tell me a couple of stories. And so one of the things we do to help reinforce it is in the daily stand-up or the weekly meeting, we want people to start the meeting by sharing stories of the different values. It not only reinforces the value with the team, but now before they go to the meeting, they're like, I better memorize those things because they're going to put me on the spot and ask me. And so it's not just memorizing them and being able to define them. It's being able to share the stories of them in action.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's great. I think that's great. Yeah. So, and when I first started working on this after my epiphany, I had like 12 values. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
We do like 3 or 4, but where do you typically land with your clients? How many values are there and how complicated are they?
3 to 5. That's it.
Yeah.
3 to 5. Any more than that, it's too hard to memorize.
Exactly.
Yeah. I met a guy, he doesn't believe in core values. I forget what he called them, but he's like, you should have about 35 of them. And I'm like, 35? And he goes, here's what you do is every week, you make that theme is that thing. And so every 35 weeks, he called them fundamentals. That's what he called them, the fundamentals. Yeah. And so every week you've got one. And after 35 weeks, you just repeat. He's like, and I'm like, so in like 11 years, everybody will know all 35 of them. But that was his belief. And I just think that when you do that, teams are just like, yeah, that's just way too much. Way too
much. I think where we've landed is you can have those always standards or whatever you want to call them, professional standards, something, but they typically top out around 10 or 12. But after all the process I've been through over the past 23 years since that .com went .bomb, at late last year, we finally just narrowed everything down where we have 3 core values and they are find the best way, do the right thing, everyone matters. So no one can tell me I can't memorize those.
Yeah, I love it. That's why I do 3 to 5. Most of our companies are in the 4 or 5 mark. Very rarely do we have one that can just pull off 3, because there's always something missing, right? There's there's this behavior I'm seeing that is really good. I can't quite put my finger on it. Let's explore that. So most of them are 4 or 5.
Well, that's good. So you help these blue collar companies hire people, which is got to be challenging in some regards. I mean, that's because when I think blue collar, I'm thinking of a lot of times they're doing a lot of hiring. And so they've got to be very systematic in what they do. So how do you teach them to test for the match with their core values as part of their hiring process?
Yeah. So just to give a little context to this. So our focus is really on that frontline employee, that laborer, that skilled technician, that craft worker. And a lot of times companies have this belief that there's nobody out there that's good. There's nobody that wants these jobs. We have a labor shortage in the trades. And I would suggest that we don't have a labor shortage. We do have a crisis, because a lot of times these guys come and they start working for somebody and they're like, I don't want to work here. This place is a hot mess. This is worse than the last place I was at. And so when people say there's no one out there that wants to work, what I want them to do is say there's no one out there that wants to work for me. I want people to own this a little bit. And when we start thinking about, okay, if no one wants to work for me, the next question I ask is why? And that's usually where we see a disconnect by what's written on the wall versus what walks down the hall, right? There's a disconnect. And we say we want these values, but the people we're hiring or the people we promote don't exemplify them. Okay. And so we have to get really clear on that before we even think about assessing someone new. Because the worst thing we can do is say one thing during the interview, assess somebody a certain way, find out that they do fit what's on the wall, and then they get there and go, this is like oil and water. Because what you sold me and now what you're delivering are so different. I can't make it here. And so that's the first step, is get really clear on who we are, not who we think we are.
Yeah. And that's, unfortunately, I think that's too common. Yeah. Particularly with the Uber leaders, like you brought up the Five Guys. Yeah. I'm not talking burgers, but
no. Although I did get hungry when you said that. So I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm hungry. But yeah, they denied the fact that they were passive aggressive because they knew that wouldn't be a popular thing.
Yeah.
But I remember watching, this was probably 20 years ago, I was watching some documentary about these underwater vents deep in the ocean. They're like, miles down, and the lava is right at the surface, and there's this 600-degree water boiling out of these vents. And scientists believe there's no way anything could survive down there. And then they found a certain species of shrimp, and then they found this, and they found that, and they found these animals that were living in an environment that would be completely toxic to anything we knew before. And it got me thinking, you know what? No matter how toxic an environment is, there's someone that will thrive there. So let's not have this belief that no one will work here. Let's just be really clear on who we are. Let's own it. And then let's start assessing people for that.
Yeah, that's probably a whole nother podcast episode of how you have these toxic company environments and people still work there. So, and the reasons that go into that. But
there's someone for everyone.
So what is the process? I mean, remember I said systematic power, my first strand here. So what's the system that I'm going to test this potential new hire and confirm that they are a match with the values of our organization? And I know they're going to live it out. They're not just going to have nodding head syndrome of, I got it. Yeah, I'm that person.
So you've heard me talk about how they're verb, right? Values are a verb. Values are a behavior. I should be able to see it. I should be able to see it in action. And too often what we do in an interview to assess is we ask questions. And instead of making it what I would call a heart-based interview, which is let's just see who you really are, we make it a head interview. And it's like, how well can you rehearse the answers to these crazy questions? So one of the things that we like to do is build processes into our interview. Things where we actually get to see them behave a certain way. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Easy ones, easy ones. So there are some companies out there that have some variation of punctuality as a core value, right? They're always on time. They're always early. Everybody shows up ready to go. Like it's just this value. And yet they ask people, tell me how punctual you are, even though the guy showed up 9 minutes late to the interview. And they're like, he says he's punctual. Today was an anomaly. No. Today was not an anomaly, because I believe that the way somebody does one thing is the way they do everything. So if they show up 9 minutes late today, they're going to show up 20 minutes late in a month when they're more comfortable. And it's just So that's one example. Another example that we give is, instead of asking somebody, hey, do you like to learn? We say, tell me about a book that you're reading that impacted you personally. Because I know a lot of people that read for entertainment value. There's no personal impact. There's no growth. There's nothing there. Tell me about a book that you read that actually caused you to act differently or do something different or, achieve some goal. It doesn't have to be, oh, I went and got certified in this, or I went and did this safety training because my boss. It was like, what did they choose to do on their own? Because if they're choosing to do it on their own, it's going to be a lot easier for us to say, hey, we're going to send you to training. They're like, yeah, let's do it. Versus, well, you're paying me, I might as well.
Yeah, interesting. But today you've got a lot of people, particularly younger people, who are not reading.
Well, it doesn't always have to be a book. Sometimes we can say, tell me about the last time that you educated yourself on something. Right. And so what we do is we teach variations of these things. I mean, I don't know about you, but like for me, it's a guilty pleasure. I love learning really obscure things on YouTube. Oh, there's someone that actually does beekeeping. I know nothing about that, but that's interesting. And I learn by watching videos. I mean, you can learn by watching a video. You can learn by listening. I don't read a lot of books, but I listen to a lot of books.
Yeah, my wife showed me something last night that was a photographer who used a digital camera, and I couldn't even describe it well, but he's taking these photographs. Like he goes and he finds a leaf that's curled up, and then he lines up the camera behind it and then takes a picture of the sunset through that little hole of the leaf. And he takes a toy ship, like a schooner, the old wooden ship.
Yeah.
And he's at the beach and he puts the ship in front of the camera and he stands behind it as the sun sets. And it looks like it's a real picture between the two. It doesn't look like it's a model ship that's this big.
Yeah.
So that type of thing. Yeah, no, I agree with you that there are some amazing things out there. I don't get into the staged little things so much, but the learning stuff, there's an amazing amount of stuff you can learn that's positive if you can stay away from the silly stuff and the toxic stuff.
That's so hard, right?
Yeah.
9 reasons black holes shouldn't exist. Ooh, what are we doing? But David, what I would ask beyond that is, so you learned about this photographer and perspective and lighting and all this stuff. And then I would say, let's have a conversation. Like, how do you think, what did you learn from that? Like, how is that going to change the way you think about certain things? Or, because I want to know it's not just entertainment. I want to know that you actually are learning from it. And then I might find out that you love photography. Now we have a hobby we can talk about, right? Like I'm getting to know you through this process as well, which, is one of our core principles. You've probably heard this before. People don't leave jobs. They leave people.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason they leave people is because they have no relationship.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend more time with my employer than I'm going to spend with my family most of the time.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to sacrifice the relationship with my family to come work for you, you better be able to have some kind of relationship with me to make me feel like I'm cared and valued. Because if not, I'm going to go find the next company and the next company and the next company. And eventually, hopefully before I retire, I find someone and I stay there a long time, right?
Yeah, I would think particularly in the trades that you really want some camaraderie. You want to feel like you're a team, that foxhole mentality that you brought up earlier. And so do you have a story of someone, you worked with a client, they applied what you taught, and they interviewed someone, and now I'm shifting gears a little bit. And for that individual who interviewed with them, it was like, oh man, this is the company I've been looking for. They had been beaten up by those toxic people or jumped in, and to be nice, it just wasn't a match. Yeah. But then they interviewed, it was like, oh wow. And then when they got on board, it actually was that nirvana, that wonderful camaraderie team where they actually felt loved and accepted
Yeah.
instead of had to live in fear all the time.
Yeah. Those stories are a little more rare because this process takes a while, right? But I do have some. One of the things that I found when I had my marketing company and I had an HVAC contractor come to me and said, hey, I don't need leads. I need guys in my trucks. What clicked for me was recruiting is nothing more than a marketing activity. I can do this. I don't need an HR background to recruit. So we spend a lot of time in helping companies craft their employer brand, their employer message, put it out into the internet, because that's where most people search for jobs now, and then create a experience through the application process, kind of like what you were talking about. Like, this is what I've been looking for. And it starts with good marketing, which starts with knowing who you are and knowing what you can deliver and being authentic. We talk a lot about authenticity. A lot of times what we'll find is, it's interesting, a lot of our construction contractors, they do have white collar jobs. And we seem to hear these stories more in the white collar, more in the leadership jobs than, say, the entry level or skilled labor. But one of the things that's really important for us is making sure that people have a solid training program. Make sure they're really investing in their people, especially the younger generation. Like you said, they don't read as much. They want to be invested in, though. They want someone to train them and coach them and mentor them. They want that. They crave that. So we had a client that was looking for estimators, the general contractor looking for estimators. And estimators are one of those like holy grail type of nirvana roles. Like, if you can find a qualified estimator that's not happy where they're at, but they're really good, because usually the unhappy ones aren't that good. You know what I mean? So if you can,
Well, and they're so important too, because if you estimate wrong, the company's not going to be profitable.
yeah, I know, it's such a critical role. And so companies are really particular about estimators. Like, they run them through the ringer. And then a lot of times they'll put them into a training program. Like, for 6 months, you don't estimate anything on your own until you learn how to do it our way.
Yeah.
And they found this one estimator, and I don't remember if they said this comment, but we do hear this comment a lot, where a client will call us and say, just got done with this interview, and the candidate could not stop gushing about the job ad and the questions we had asked. They kept saying that it's like, it was meant for them. It was like, this is the job I've been looking for my whole life. And we hear that quite frequently, because when we write our ads and we do the marketing stuff, it's very much targeted towards an ideal employee. And so once we make that alignment and they show up and we actually get the company to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to spend the time onboarding them well. I'm going to nurture them. I'm going to mentor them. I'm going to equip them. And I'm going to slow down. Because I don't know about the work you do, but the work I do, a lot of times people are like, I need to hire someone yesterday. And then when they hire that person, they kick them to the curb and they say, go get to work. Hey, call me. Let me know if you need anything.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work out. And so if we can get companies to slow down and take the time to do it right, those new employees they thrive, and they go on to estimate, and then they go, oh my gosh, this is the best estimator we've ever had. Like, they get it. They think like us. They act like us. They quote the project like us. In fact, our profit margins have gone up.
Yeah.
Because now the estimates are so well done, we're not missing things. And that's where I think the important part is when you find that right person and you put them in an environment where they can thrive, they're going to do it your way. They're going to think like you. They're going to watch out for the company. They go, you know what? When this company does better, I do better.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not just going to pencil whip it like so many of those contractors are used to.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I love what you're saying, Ryan. And so why don't we wrap it here? Because I think the people that are interested are really going to be interested. You made some awesome points. I love the way you're talking about how you incorporate it into the hiring process and how that stays with a company. So that, it's not only with the people that are hiring, but you're teaching them how to be a stronger organization overall. So where can people go to learn more about what you're doing or get in contact with you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. They want to look me up, Ryan Englin, or even Core Matters, very much on LinkedIn. On our website, corematters.com, if we've got a lot about our process, what we do, a ton of free hiring tips. Like, I've learned that sometimes people just need to solve one problem and they're never going to engage me to solve that one problem. Well, I'd rather them learn it the right way and learn it some some big think tank said do this and it's impossible in the trades. But if your listeners would like a free copy of my book, I'd love to make that available to them. If they go to corematters.com/free book, enter their information, small little shipping and handling fee, and I'll actually autograph and mail them a copy of my book, and they can learn all about this stuff.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for being on the show. I think this has been very good conversation for everyone.
Thank you.